Good evening and Happy New Year to you. It's 6:30, so I'm going to open the meeting. Thank you for attending this hybrid meeting of Chorley Liaison. For those who don't know me, I'm Councillor Gordon France and I'm the chair of this committee. Councillor Kim Snare is the vice chair. Also present in the town hall are officers. As this is an hybrid meeting, members are also present in the council chamber and on Microsoft Teams. If you're in the council chamber and wish to speak, please indicate, and once I've brought you in, you will need to activate your microphone by pressing the button under your name. For those of you on Teams, please remain muted. If you wish to speak, please use the raised hand function. I will then bring you in at an appropriate time and you can unmute. This meeting is also being live streamed onto YouTube. I assume streaming's happening now, Nina, yeah? Right, I've done the welcome. Minutes of the meeting of the 19th of October. I believe these have had to be updated to reflect the attendance of Councillor Cornwell, and that has been done. So are there any queries from anybody on those other than the attendance of Councillor Cornwell, which has been amended? Item 3. Oh, yeah. The police are here in attendance as well. You're new to me. You are? Right, Neil McGottland, Neighbourhood Police Sergeant for Chorley. Item 3, Central Lancashire Local Plan. This is a presentation. So can I please welcome Zoe Whiteside to the meeting?
Did you want to say something?
Well,
yeah.
This in the town centre meeting, I normally do my bit and then get the hell out of your business. So, are you happy for me to?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Right, afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Neil McLaughlin. I'm one of the 2 neighbourhood policing sergeants for Chorley, for those who have never met or spoken to in the past. The other sergeant is Ollie Timperley. Roughly speaking, I have the centre of Chorley and Ollie Timperley has the villages Bretherton, Croston, Adlington, so on and so forth. Whilst we do try and manage things individually for those areas for ease, I'm sure you probably realise there's far more work than one person can manage, so we do mix and match. So if there's anything you raise that's not specific to me for Chorley centre, if you like, obviously I will. You can either email me or let me know what the issues are and I'll pass them on to Ollie. But I speak for us both, and obviously for those, I'm sure you met Mike Moyes, who used to be me before he got promoted, is now our geographic inspector. So we've got a really good line of continuity there, from inspector down through myself. Mike said to me, the inspector, I asked him if there was an agenda. He says there wasn't. I said, well, what do you want me to bring to the meeting? And he said, well, whatever you think's relevant to people that will be here that might find interesting. So what I've just done is a very quick snapshot of the things that we've dealt with recently that might be of interest to you. I'm sure you will know some of these issues because they will be on your areas. These are literally just a few highlights. I'm sure you can imagine the demand we get into the policing environment and neighbourhood policing, but it was just a quick update of the things that you might find interesting if it's relevant to your specific areas. And I've obviously heard of other issues this evening up at Rivington and so on and so forth, which I will pass on to the relevant staff. So from a policing point of view, Happy New Year. Christmas and New Year was pretty good. The demand was incredibly high, as I'm sure you appreciate, across the whole of Lancashire and probably all the police forces nationally, I'm sure. But just a few things I'd like to touch on. For those of you who have an interest or responsibility for Chorley Town Centre, We've historically, over the last couple of years, 18 months, had quite a lot of juvenile nuisance problems on the town centre, which we've put an incredible amount of work into. We reported back to Mr Bradley and the town centre group a couple of weeks ago. And by and large, we'd managed to get a grip of that and a good handle on it, identified our key ringleaders and so on and so forth, and everything was looking fantastic up until the last 2 weekends, or the last 2 weeks, when we've had three incidents involving the same group of people. In context of what we have been dealing with over the last 18 months, it's a very small blip. But I bring this to you because we've all got a vested interest in the town centre. So A, yes, we're aware of them, and B, we have most definitely dealt with them. So I'll just run through them. We had there was a domestic incident on the town centre bus station 2 weeks ago between a couple. That was dealt with expeditiously, but then that attracted the attention of a load of youths, and the police car got damaged. Someone kicked the mirror off the police car. We've identified who that person is, and they're being dealt with. We had a theft at Real Cinema of a piece of pizza. Ordinarily, I'm sure you would think, what the hell are the police dealing with that for? But the young person that was involved is right on our top of our hit list, our radar. And this particular person is going for a CBO, criminal behaviour, on the 14th of February, which we're hoping the court will give us. And that will preclude him from entering the town centre other than accompanied by an adult, and if he's got a genuine reason to be on the town centre. And that's a tactic we're going to be using with the council now going forward, an awful lot more, to deal with the juveniles that have gone through the early phases of the criminal justice system, and now they've used up all their get out of free jail cards, if you like, and unfortunately for them, they've not deemed to change their ways, and this is how we're going to deal with them. What I can tell you as a result of that, I had a meeting with the commercial director of Real Cinema, who came up from London to discuss some issues around Real Cinema, and he's going to provide us a funding stream to do some outreach work with the juveniles on the town centre, but on a wider scheme. So we've got a funding stream there supported by Real Cinema to do some outreach work and hopefully bring in some diversionary tactics, and obviously we'll use Inspire to help us with that, if that funds some Inspire work, as we've done a piece of work up at Adlington at the youth centre. There we'll look at that. And then lastly, we had a public order incident on Friday Street where another police vehicle was damaged by one of these juveniles, and again that person's been arrested. So it was, if you have an interest other than your personal interest in the town centre, it's just to reassure you, yes, it's a blip, yes, we're all over it, and yes, these juveniles are robustly being dealt with, and if we have to put 12, 13 and 14-year-olds in court, be assured we will do it. So obviously we will try every other tactic to divert them away. For those who have a vested interest in Coppell, the highlight since the last meeting you had was the racist graffiti we had up at Coppell, which was quite extensive around Spenmore Lane. Somebody or some persons decided they'd like to go and draw swastikas and similarly racist type comments on walls. We did an incredible amount of work up there. Julia, you'll know Lucy Cooper, of course. We did plainclothes tactics, schools, liaison visits, Inspire, and we did both high and closed, no visibility clothing. To date, unfortunately, despite all that work, and we're talking hundreds of hours of work there, and Facebook releases, we've never identified the single person or persons who we believe to be juveniles. We obviously targeted the right people because it's stopped. We've had no further incidents, which is, ideally we'd like to identify them and educate them, and if necessary prosecute. But that's, I guess, the second best thing is that we've stopped it. We've stopped it happening. For the area of Gillibrands, the hotspot there in the last couple of weeks is damage to Gillibrands School. Juveniles again, getting over the fence. We've got a number of juveniles that have been caught on site and have been spotted on the CCTV. So that's a piece of work ongoing to see what we can do with that. But again, it's to just give you reassurance that we're aware of it and we're on with it. And we will, again, apply any tactic that we believe is appropriate for that. Similarly, Buckshaw, we had an issue October, November last year, predominantly with juvenile nuisance on Buckshaw Village. Again, with the same tactics and plain clothes, we stopped and did a lot of interventions in conjunction with the council. And those issues would appear, even over Christmas, have gone. I cannot tell you we don't have the occasional juvenile nuisance, but the groupings of it, we're not getting at the moment. And this is the data I've done today. I think our last reported juvenile nuisance issue on Buckshaw, would you believe, for the entirety of Buckshaw was Friday of last week. Now, I'm not telling you that there aren't juvenile issues going on Buckshaw, but if there are, they're not being reported to us. And as I've spoken to some yourselves and colleagues, you know, we are many things. What we are not is purveyors of crystal balls. For you. For Clayton Brook, massive issue on the run up to Christmas, just before Christmas, with 14 criminal damages to quite expensive vehicles, which Michelle will know all about. Somebody yet identified to us was taking a particular route and using what we believe was a key, because of the patterning on the car, was just scratching the hell out of cars' bonnets, just unwanted, unnecessary violence, damage to people's property. Again, we did high visibility patrol with the council, plain clothes operations. We did lots of Facebook alerts, and we did a week of action up there using our task force team. We stopped lots of people. We stopped lots of residents out and about at 1 o'clock in the morning, doing their own reassurance operation, which is fantastic because A, we've got the community buy-in, but B, it's fantastic because they became aware that we had plainclothes police officers skulking around trying to catch these people. So, and again, similarly to the other example I've given you, unfortunately, we have a suspicion. We do not have enough to bring this person in to speak to them. But fortunately, the second best option, it's absolutely stopped. So clearly, our targeting of that area has got out. We advertised the fact we were going to do it, you know, retrospectively. But, you know, that we've had no more damages to vehicles since just before Christmas, which is pleasing. A message from Kath and Michelle for you. Can you sort them out of youth club, please?
I'm trying.
I'm just going to drop the ball and leave it at that.
Thanks.
But they said, if I'm going to please let you know.
Thanks.
There's an awful lot going on in the world of neighbourhood policing at the moment, especially because of resourcing and so on and so forth. So please be assured that all your areas are getting as much attention as we can possibly give them, with a lot of other commitments that these officers and PCSOs all have. Just linking back to what I said before, please encourage people to contact us and ring us. You know, because our resources are limited, we can only really target where we're getting data and information from. And if people aren't ringing us because they don't think it's important enough, or they think somebody else is ringing up or whatever, please get that message across. It doesn't need to be 101. It certainly doesn't need to be 999, but online reporting is there. They can just send an email in and say, please be aware. We will create a log out of that. So it's so our data, you know, and Julie, you'll know, we targeted the landings, didn't we, when we had a drug issue up there? As far as I'm aware, that's gone. Yeah. And that was because we did a surgery up there. We encourage people just to contact us. So it does work, the targeting. Not much more, you'll be pleased to hear. So one of the things does everybody know what In the Know is? You all know, right, okay. Right, well, I'll not bore you to death with that, but you know what it is. So this month this is where we, the police, have proactively gone out and we are doing in the nose this month, just so as you know. But what I would like to hear from you is if you have any other premises areas you'd like us to tip up on, coffee mornings, clubs, please let me know. But this is just so as you know where we have been this month and where we will be this month. So we've been so far Clayton Green Library and the Sports Centre, Accrington Library and Rivington Green Cafe, Coppell Library, Asda on Water Street, the market, we've set up shop a couple of times there, Birkacre Garden Centre and Tesco's at Buckshaw Village. We choose these areas because they're high footfall for us. So we can grab a lot of people. Not everyone wants to sign up, but, you know, 10% of 100 people is a lot better than 10% of 5 people. So, but if you have any areas you'd like us to target, and I think we'll look at Rivington again, in addition to the conversation we've had, we'll look at that. But if there's any other areas, please let us know, and we'll set up shop, because it's another vehicle for people to report stuff to us, and it's another vehicle that we can get information out to people around crime prevention, be aware of this, make sure your doors are locked, all the police messages that you'll be familiar with. Hasina's not here, is she? No, okay. Hasina reported to us an issue on the town centre with taxi drivers being abused and damage being caused. We've locked 2 people up for that. For those of you who remember Lewis Dairy, the PCSO of the town centre, Lewis is back. So we'll have another PCSO in the town centre. But what that also does, it frees us, gives us a little bit of wiggle room to then free up other members of staff to go on to other areas that we might need to drop into because there's been a specific problem over almost like parachuting the A-team in. It gives us a little bit more flexibility. And of course, for me, we've got somebody back that's incredibly experienced and is very proactive around all the neighbourhood policing stuff. And lastly from me, because it's an issue that you guys bring up an awful lot, is issues around parking, bad parking, rubbish parking, speeding, anything to do with cars, other than the issue that's raised earlier on around the use of nitrous oxide, particularly prevalent in the villages. We've got a new traffic management officer called Sean Canning, previously a 30-year Lancashire police. I think he might have been a sergeant, did a lot of his time on traffic, so he likes cars and things like this. He's said he's happy, instead of you guys contacting us to report a traffic issue or a parking issue or an obstruction issue, he's happy for you to have direct contact with him, and he will go out and do a site survey, establish if it's a short-term problem or a long-term problem, establish whether it's something the police can deal with or it needs to be referred to highways. And obviously, and as an ex-traffic officer, he loves all that stuff. So it's his thing. So what I'll do is I'll get a list of all the councillors' email addresses and I'll email you Sean's details. And then, and if Sean turns around and says, yep, I've done a site survey, there is an ongoing problem, we need to put enforcement in, or we need to get the voluntary speed gun out, or we need to get the speed, you know, whatever we need to do, we'll do that, you know. But it takes, as you can imagine, it takes a lot of demand off myself and Ollie Timperley, but actually it gives you a direct line into somebody who will, instead of me being possibly able to go and have a look, will be able to go and have a look, which is great. He's also the gentleman that if the villages like Croston and so on and so forth, and a lot of other places over the Queen's Jubilee wanted to have street parties, he was the one who we passed the information on, and he authorised the street parties. So Adlington Carnival, Coppell and Croston, you know, it's just going to simplify an awful, can be a long-winded process. And that is it.
Thank you, Neil. I think, County Councillor, we don't want an awful lot of questions at this stage because the idea was Neil had a drop-in session between 6 and 6:30. But I think County Councillor Sina Khan, have you got a question, Sina?
It's not a question, it's just to touch on the taxi drivers issue just before Christmas. Just want to say thank you to the police for tackling it very quickly. It's been excellent. Great feedback from all the taxi drivers saying the trouble's really gone down since then. However, we were discussing like dash cams and dash cams for their taxis, and the initiative that they rolled out, I think it's Preston somewhere, she's going to come and roll it out in Chorley. I've spoken to Police and Crime Commissioner and put the taxi driver trade and the trade in touch with the Police and Crime Commissioner. He's going to have a meeting with them the first week of February to look for some land pack funding and maybe some other funding that he's got, and see if they can give some funding for these dash cams, which will help them.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Sina. It'll also help them in their other business as well, won't it? Because it'll afford them some protection when they're out and about as well.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's grand. I'll report back to Mike Moyes and let him know, because obviously Mike took that on personally when you raised it with him. But it's good to hear that our interventions and probably the arrest of 2 people has maybe brought that home to our troublesome youths.
Okay, that's fine. I initially got involved because they were mainly about 80% of the drivers live in Chorley East, where I represent, so they contacted me.
Yeah, that's grand.
Thank you anyway.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Sina. Michelle, did you want just a quick one?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just want to go on record to thank Neil and his team. They did do a phenomenal job before Christmas. It was horrific, the damage to some of these, and it's just mindless vandalism. So I'd like to go on record, please, to say thank you, because as I often say, as councillors, we're too quick to criticise and not quick enough to say thanks. So my heartfelt thanks to you and your team.
And if it starts again, as with any
I'll
of
be
these
back
things.
on the phone again.
I know, and you've got my personal mobile number as well.
I have.
Right.
Michelle, you're quite right. Go on, Colin, you can... Just a quick...
Yeah.
I wonder, when you've got all these troublesome youths around, do you involve the parents?
Yes.
Ah, good.
Yes.
So you do
Absolutely.
make them aware.
Yes, and are you aware of what a PSPO is?
Yeah.
Right, okay. We have not utilised them, we think, to the maximum. There's reasons around that, because there's very stringent legislation around PSPOs and the enforcement of them. But we're going to start utilising PSPOs. And part of that is if you're a youth or a juvenile under a certain age, they have to be served and given in front of their parents. The other thing we're going to do is that a lot of these children live in housing association housing. Many of the housing associations have a very strict code of conduct about the behaviour of their tenants. And of course, that not only applies to the immediacy of their property, but the behaviour of their tenants and children in a wider sphere. So we're going to start looking at, obviously, not threatening, but, you know, if we start making other agencies aware of the issues with, and we're talking about a very small group of people, please, we've got a group of about 15, 20, of which there are probably 5 to 7 key ringleaders, of which we're already on with 3 courses of prosecution. You take them out of the equation, I guarantee 95% of this will go away. We are also lettering any child we find on the town centre, whether they're up to no good or not, where they might be just sat there having a, you know, if it's 6 o'clock in the evening, maybe not, but if they're stood outside the takeaway at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday night, even if they're not doing anything, their parents are getting letters. Do you know where your child was at such and such a time and place? In case anyone was thinking of saying, well, can you not utilise Facebook? Unfortunately not. Very rarely can we use Facebook to advertise a problem involving juveniles, because there's a lot of legislation around juveniles. We can use it in extreme circumstances, but we're talking far beyond the issues we've got in Chorley, far beyond. So we've got to be really careful about using social media. You know, do you know where your little darling was last night? Here's a picture. Yeah, absolutely can't do. And I get it, because, you know, not all children are involved in this behaviour. And, you know, what we don't want to do is cause a lot of good children to be caught up in collateral damage. So we've got to be really careful. But parents, guardians, housing associations, if relevant, and then the enforcement side, I'm hoping, and I'm hoping this has just been a blip over the last 2 weekends, because we're on with it now. I'm hoping that will bring us back to where we were over the Christmas period, which was, we were in a really good place.
Thank you, Neil.
If anybody's got anything they'd like to fire straight into the neighbourhood policing office, I was just saying to some colleagues here that for the first time in a long time, the Lancashire Police website is up to date and accurate. So you can either email a team or you can email an officer directly. And I'm sure you all know who your local neighbourhood policing officers are. So you can email them directly. Nothing, you know, please don't report crime, but advise them of a crime issue, and then obviously we can look at the targeting and the tasking as I've discussed. I'm just keen to give you guys as many avenues into the police system, if you like, you know. So that's it.
Thank you, Neil. I don't see any more hands, so we'll, if you want to go, Neil, you're welcome. I know you're a busy man.
I'm going
Thank you for your attendance, Neil. Very informative.
The police station, the new police station. Was yourself, wasn't it? I'm led to believe, even though it's not a new building, it's still going to be 12. It's going to be 12 months. And the answer to your question, if I didn't give you, will we have a presence on the town centre like the one-stop shop cop, maybe in Inspire or somebody? Yes, that is the plan. Although the police station is moving a little bit further down the road, there will be a police presence based on the town centre. All righty.
Thank you, Neil.
If you need me, give us a shout. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Right, that brings us on to item 3, which is the Central Lancashire Local Plan. And I'm pleased to welcome Zoe to the meeting, who's going to give a short update, and then we'll take questions. So I think we'll let Zoe do the update, and then take questions at the end, Zoe?
Yeah, happy with that, Chair.
That's how we want to do it.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any slides, so I'm just going to talk, just a quick update, like Chair said, in terms of just ensuring that members on the call, on the meeting and here tonight are fully aware of the preferred options consultation and have all the information that you need to promote and respond to the consultation and make sure people in your areas are responding and engaging. I think Nina's going to put the website up so you can see that on the screen. So for those that you aren't aware, we are consulting on the next stage of what's known as a local plan. So a local plan is an integral part of planning a future for a borough in terms of where locations for development and infrastructure will go for the next 15 years. So the preferred options is the next stage towards that process. You may remember we had issues and options a couple of years ago, which is kind of like a blank page start in terms of what are the issues that we need to look at in our borough, what are our needs, etc. This is kind of a next stage to that, and the preferred options document has proposals for housing and employment in there. It is a part 1, so we are going to do this consultation in 2 parts. Usually, although it isn't rare, some other councils have done it in this way, the usual course of action will be to have a single preferred options, which is a draft local plan. But because of the quantum of work that's needed to do that, and because we are a 3-council local plan, so it's for Preston, Chorley and South Ribble, and there are very strong reasons why we are doing a joint local plan as opposed to a Chorley only one, which are linked to housing and housing numbers, which I can come on to in a little bit later on. It's a joint plan and there's quite a volume of work, and because of COVID, etc., we wanted to get something out for residents to see that there is an emerging plan, that it is starting to take shape, and actually to take stock with how those proposals are coming on and to get some views on those. So the consultation will run for 10 weeks. It started on the 19th of December and runs to the 24th of February, so it's a 10-week consultation to take account of the Christmas break. And obviously it's the next stage towards the local plan, as I said. The consultation is running concurrently across all 3 council areas, Preston, Chorley and South Ribble. And there are publicity drop-in events across all 3 areas, and people can attend any of those events. It doesn't have to be an event in Chorley, and it doesn't have to be an event in their area or their ward. It can be any of those events that you attend. So during the part 1, the stage 1 consultation, like I said, we're talking about emerging policies. So in this document, which is online, if you go into, there's a link, if you scroll down. Yeah, so this is when you put in Central Lancashire Local Plan on the website, preferred options, this is the page it'll take you to, and it gives you some of the information that I'm talking about this evening. But the crucial part is the link there. So if you click on that link, it takes you to Citizen Space. And this is where we are seeking views. So it is primarily an online consultation. And there are reasons for that, not least resourcing. So if we do consultations in this way, it saves the council, officers, resources, a significant amount of time, and also enables us to much more efficiently and effectively analyse responses. Whereas if we get them in paper copy, so in the last local plan, Chorley 2012, my colleagues, I wasn't here, I wasn't in local plan at the time, tell me that before online consultations they'd get hundreds of thousands of written reps, had to photocopy them, had to annotate them, type them up, etc. And it was a huge amount of work. Press of a button will tell us how many responses we've got. So I can tell you to date we've got, I think, just short of 50, so not a huge amount yet, and we need to push for that. But it'll tell us how many people have applied, have responded rather, where they live, whether they've answered all of the questions and so forth. So it's much easier and quicker for us to analyse those responses. But when you go into the Citizen Space consultation portal, it's essentially this document. And you can print this off if you wanted to. And whilst we're not actively giving hard copies out because of cost, upon request, we will do that if people really can't use the internet or don't have access to the internet. There are copies available in all libraries as well, not only of this document, but a lot of the evidence that sits behind it. So anybody wanting any bedtime reading, by all means, go along to your local library and you can see all of that evidence. And the evidence is also on this website too. But the consultation asks you questions about all of the policy directions in the document, along with the proposed site allocations. So, for example, showing you here, and people at home may not be able to see this well, but we have lists. We have a summary of the housing and employment need in the document, and then there's lists of housing and employment site proposals. Now, what those mean, what they mean is that we have got to the stage where we've got quite well-formed ideas about housing and employment sites for the new local plan. But it's absolutely not a done deal by any means, and there's still quite a lot of work to do in terms of assessing those sites and the suitability of those sites. So, for example, there's still a lot of work to do around flood risk, there's a lot of work to do around transport and habitats regulation assessments as well. So it is for consultation. They're not fixed in stone. Things may change and will change, I'm sure. But it is important that people go onto that portal and have their say. And like I said, if people want to submit written representations, we will accept them. We can't refuse them, but we would prefer people to fill it in online if need be. And people can come along to Union Street or to any of the drop-in events, and staff, my officers, my team, will help people to understand how they do that, to show them Citizen Space, etc. So that's really important. So like I said, the consultation closes on the 24th of February. We do have a series of drop-in events, which I think, Nina, if maybe you go back, or if you scroll down, it'll show you where those are. Yeah. So we've done 6 so far. It's roughly 2 to 3 a week. It's fair to say we're doing a lot more than Preston and South Ribble. So if you scroll down, you can see Preston and South Ribble, I think, are doing 4 or 5 each. Our members here are absolutely, it's a priority to make sure we get out to all of the wards, and that's what officers have done. So they're usually around the 4 till 7 p.m. So we've tried to make sure that we're available for people that work too. And so those events are taking place, so people can come along, see full-scale maps. We've got huge printed copy maps where you can really see what the proposals are, and ask planning officers questions about those proposals and also about the policies. Although it's fair to say I've attended, I think, five or six meetings and I've not been asked one question about a policy. It's always been about a site, which I can understand. That's how people, you know, the important thing to people and local residents. But, you know, by all means, people can come along and ask questions about, you know, infrastructure, open space, playing pitches, any of those kind of things. And it's worth saying that, you know, in terms of those kind of needs, that's the next stage in the local plan. So once we've concluded this consultation, we'll be coming back out to consultation later in the year with a draft local plan. So you'll go from a thin document like that, call it thin, to probably something maybe like that, which will have all of the allocations in for housing, employment, schools, hopefully, transport, anything around health. It will have a viability assessment, so we have consultants working to crunch the numbers really in terms of whether the scale of development can be funded through the developer contributions. It'll talk about affordable housing, it'll talk about gypsy and travellers, all of those different kind of land uses that this document doesn't do, because it does focus on employment and housing. And it will be a draft plan, so it'll have detailed policy in there. And then thereafter, we do that consultation, we do a bit more work, and then we do something called a publication version. That's where we're getting further towards the end of the process. So roughly speaking, we envisage to have an adopted plan late 2024, early 2025, depending on the planning inspectorate and how long a public inquiry would take. But that's kind of, you know, the rough programme in terms of the timescales. It is worth mentioning as well, for those that are close to the planning world, that the government have just before Christmas published a new draft local national planning policy framework. So it's national planning policy, and there's some real crucial changes in their proposals around housing need and something called 5-year housing land supply, which potentially change the goalposts for Chorley in particular. So we're working through that now and what that means for us. Obviously, we're going to respond to the consultation, but we need to take account of that and reflect as well. So that is also sort of in the programme. But I'm more than happy to take questions, Chair. I've not gone into the detail about particular areas or particular sites, and I'd rather not do that tonight if I can avoid it, but happy to take questions or to take questions away with me and come back to people via email if need be.
Thank you, Zoe. As you say, it is a consultation, so obviously people's views are important. Questions for Zoe? Ian?
Yeah, I can understand why people don't respond to the policies part, because a lot of the statements in it are fairly high-level statements, which are difficult to disagree with. Why is it not possible to be able to interrogate the plan to actually pull all those policies down to specific areas, like you do with the site allocations?
I think you need to give me an example, because they are borough-wide policies. I mean, as we move forward, there will be more detailed specific policies for particular areas. So, for example, we'll need to have policies on conservation areas. So they are strategic policies. If you look at national planning policy, it requires you to have strategic policies and local policies. There's not many local policies in there. They are quite high level and across the 3 council areas. And I would hope that you'll find that when we come back out towards later in the year, that there will be more detailed policy in there. It's difficult to answer that question without an example, really, in terms of what you were looking for, in terms of more detail or drilling down.
Well, if you took an example like transport policy, and you're saying we have an aim to improve transport across the region, what people would actually be interested in is what's the effect of that in their particular parish? And at the moment, I don't think you can do that.
Yeah, it doesn't do that. You're absolutely right. Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on transport, and obviously we rely on the county council, the transport authority. So the county council have commissioned Jacobs Consultancy, who will go away now using these allocations and proposals, and they'll do some modelling. Some transport and traffic modelling, which will assess the impact of all of this development on both Chorley, Preston and South Ribble, and cumulatively. And that will, they'll provide us with data which will set out where particular sites, where there's hotspots that can be mitigated and hotspots that can't be mitigated, and that's where you may see in the next iteration some sites might drop out, other sites might have to come back in, because they can't, because of those transport impacts. The other thing that the county are working on is something called a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, which is crucial to this because obviously we all want to see more active travel, but we look to our county council colleagues to tell us what that looks like and also to inform things like parking standards, what we expect of developers, particularly on larger developments, around cycling and cycling infrastructure, because we're not quite there yet, I don't think, in terms of prescribing that. And unless you prescribe it, a developer won't offer it. But I'm not a transport planner, I do rely on the county, and they are engaged with that. Similarly with schools, so this document, it does touch on schools, and we did try and push our county council colleagues, the leader of the council really tried to get them to put certain wording in there to commit to a secondary school in particular in Chorley. And they weren't willing to do that at this stage because they said, well, we're not entirely convinced on the need yet. We need to do some more number crunching. We need to look at what that means in terms of pupil numbers, and then we'll commit. But that will be in the next iteration in terms of what that looks like for schools, because it's a big piece of work. If we identify there's a need for, off the top of my head, another primary, another secondary school in Chorley, for example, we need to find a site for those, and that isn't an easy task because obviously there's land value and location, etc. So there's still a lot of work to be done. So some of that, what we talked about actually, is to come, and this document, you're absolutely right, doesn't do that. It is very high level.
Thank you, Ian. Have we any more questions online or elsewhere? As I said, this is a consultation. There are obviously opportunities at drop-ins to speak to officers. It's important to do that because things can change, as Zoe said, things can change. So have we any more questions for Zoe? Graham and Alan. Go on, Graham.
Just one. Where I live, you ask people, do you know about the local plan and do you know whether they're building on this plot of land? And they seem to be in total ignorance. It's like it's never been advertised or publicised that the plan is in existence.
I don't know what we do about that, because that's a shame, isn't it, that people aren't engaged in their local areas. And that's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, I mean, we have promoted it. We promoted it on social media. We promoted it on there was reference to In the Know. You know, I'm not really sure how else we can do that, really. In terms of, we as a council, we moved away many years ago from things like flyers because of the cost, because of the waste of paper. So I'm not really sure how we get around that, really, in terms of promoting it, because it's so important. You know, it directs where all the development goes, play, open space, schools, all the stuff that we've talked about. So I think there's an education piece there, isn't it? And whether that's obviously a joint responsibility, not only for officers in the council, but also for parish councils as well and people that are in the community to promote the local plan. I think there is an issue, isn't there, around planning. People see it as very, and it is a technical area. Sometimes it is difficult to explain something that is very technical in a non-technical term. And then there's also some people have had experiences where they felt that they've not been listened to, they've objected maybe to a site, and because it's not gone their way, then they feel, you know, a bit despondent. But that's not a reason not to engage. It's so important, and it is a meaningful consultation. It really is. You know, we really do. An inspector at the end of this process. That's why at these drop-in events we take registrations of everyone that's attended. Obviously, they don't have to do that, but you know, yourself attended one, and we have to show that to the inspector. And the inspector will grill the councils on what engagement have you had and you undertaken with your residents to make sure that there is buy-in. And not everybody will be happy, but we have to demonstrate that we've listened to people. So I think there's something around that in terms of, you know, and if people have got ideas about how we can better promote the local plan and the process, then we're all ears, really.
Our next door neighbour, I collared her this morning in the courtyard, and I said, do you know that land there has been recommended not to be developed? She says no. I said, well, would you mind putting your views forward if you don't want as you don't? Oh, she said, I can't be bothered with that. It's total apathy. It's like you're batting your head against a brick. Well, the other neighbour lives in a 7-bedroomed house, and I went up and told him, and it goes through his garden. And he said, well, I don't know about it. And it's like, other than an odd lady who lives in Factory Lane, who sent about hundreds of flyers out last time, remember, Kim? People just don't know. It's a shame, really, because I'm speechless, really. I don't know what to do. And then I get accosted on Chorley railway station. Hey, that land at front of your house, it's been passed for building. No, it's not. Oh, yeah, it has. And I thought, come on, Bennett. And this is what happens. It's not publicised enough. It's not your fault, Zoe, don't get me wrong.
No, I don't know what more we can do, really. I mean, I'm all, like I said, I'm all ears. If there's anything else that members have ideas in terms of how we can promote it, then, because we're not, you know, the events have been fairly well attended. I mean, last night we had just short of 50. I think we had 49 attending at Adlington last night. So we do get a good number of people coming along. But yeah, we want to see more, and we want to have more responses. Like I said, I think we're just short of 50, which is quite poor considering that's across 3 council borough areas and Preston's a city. I mean, it was similar last time. We got a lot more towards the back end of the consultation period, and the citizen space is quite good in that you can go in, start filling it in, come out of it and go back. But the other thing as well is people don't have to fill the whole thing in, as I can't remember how many questions there are, but you could, that person you talked about could just go in and put that one comment in on that one site, and 5-10 minutes worth of work, and their comment would be marked out. You know, we would have that as a record. So,
Alan.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, apologies for slipping in halfway through. Another meeting overran on me. Quick question. You mentioned, I think, if I understood it correctly, the revised figures coming out in the MPPF. Are they better or worse for Chorley?
well, what they're proposing to do is they're saying that they're not going to necessarily change the standard method formula, and for hopefully everybody on the call and here tonight understands, because I don't want to go into massive detail about the standard method for housing, but what they're saying is they're not going to change the formula necessarily, but they're changing things around the approach to what's called the 5-year housing land supply. So for any of those that have been close to planning inquiries at the moment, Chorley doesn't have a 5-year housing land supply, and that puts us in a difficult position. What the government's proposals talk about is where there's been previous oversupply of housing in your previous local plan, that will be taken into account. And also where you've got a fairly advanced local plan, again, you won't have to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply as you move towards the end of your local plan. So there's a few technical elements in there that will put us in a better position than we are right today. But obviously it's only in draft. So one of the things that we want to do is have clarity from Mr Gove as to how quickly those are going to be implemented, and just to make sure that the way it's going to be drafted is absolutely what is best for our council. So in terms of the standard method for housing, what they talk about is it doesn't have to be the be-all and end-all. If you look at national policy now, it says that really that is the be-all and end-all. There's new wording in there about if you can demonstrate that you've got other reasons why your housing need is different, you can deviate. So again, that's an avenue for us to explore. The other thing that national, I'm sorry, I'm dictating to you now what national policy is saying, and I'm testing myself. But one of the other key things that it says, which is a big biggie for us, is it talks about if a council has can demonstrate that it's done everything it can to try and meet its housing need, and the only way it can meet that housing need figure. So say, for example, the inspector was saying it's standard method for Chorley, no matter what, and I think at the moment it's 542 homes a year. So how are you going to do your 542 homes a year? And if Chorley was saying, well, actually, we can do, for argument's sake, 300, and the only way we can meet the 542 is by releasing Greenbelt, what new national policy in draft says is that is an acceptable reason why the inspector should accept that 300 or 350, whatever I said, as opposed to going in the Greenbelt. So it gives you an avenue again where you're heavily constrained by Greenbelt, which, as you know, we are. So again, a good step in the right direction, but still it isn't set in stone, it's only consultation, so we need to understand actually when are we going to know that it's going to be set in stone, and then we can think about our local plan programme and steer it in such a way that we're getting the best deal for Chorley. I hope that makes sense. It is a very technical area, but yeah.
It is a strange one, and I think in planning law, whilst it's still draft, the inspectorate are going to go on the old system. This is the problem, isn't it? Yes, Julie.
Thank you. I want to go back to actually the issue about lack of engagement and the concern you've talked about. I think we've got to recognise that, you know, people might not be interested in the local plan in isolation, but what they have been interested in is how we've had housing developments inflicted on us, really. You know, we've never seen anything like it with developments that we've had to accept, even though we've locally refused them. And so, if anything, it's people are disheartened, disengaging, because they don't actually think it makes a difference. And it's down to us as leaders, as councillors, to go out there and engage and proactively educate. And that sounds really patronising, but have those conversations with people about, you know, people can still make a difference, and that we certainly, as councillors, not going to sit on our laurels and just accept things, but we've got to be open-minded and objective about the reality that we have to have a plan. Without a plan, we'd be in an even worse mess than what we've had to put up with these last couple of years. So it's, like I say, it's down to local leadership. We've just got to lead the way. I attended one of my parish councils last week. They didn't even want to talk about it. And that's how much they're affected by, almost like, you know, they're disillusioned. And we have to almost like reignite that spark, really, and just get them involved. And one way is, you know, it's what Bretherton are doing and what Moseley more recently just said they're going to do, and what Copley are doing around building a neighbourhood plan. And that's not saying no more building. It's about looking at everyone's aspirations in those parishes about and in other strategic areas about how they can make a difference and have a community and have things looking like they want it to look like. So we've just got to be a bit more spirited and positive about it all, and try and get people to those meetings. We're putting out additional letters. I know they happen up in your part of the world, just as a prompt. And then, you know, we need to do the social media stuff as well and try and get people there. And it is having those quality conversations. So good on you, even if you get accosted at the railway station. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. No worries. But again, people just, you know, this is the rumour mill, isn't it? Sometimes, you know, social media doesn't necessarily, it's not factual, but it's definitely there on all the hyper-local groups, people having these conversations, and you know it's not fact. You've got to pull it into an arena where we have got the facts, get them to these meetings, get them to come on YouTube and watch similar meetings like we've got tonight, and hopefully then we can engage with them.
Thank you, Julie. I know myself and Kim have leafleted some of the residents in our particular northeast area. Any more questions for Zoe? Can't see anybody online. Thank you very much. Thank you, Zoe. You're welcome to go if you want to now. Right, item 4 is a request by Croston Parish Council. We have got some responses. Will they have seen these, Nina, or not?
Yeah, they've been published and sent to everyone.
They've been published. Have we anybody present from Croston? Sorry? Right, so Alan's Alan's going to wear another hat now. He's not Councillor Alan, he's Clark Alan.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty, I think people attending have probably come across this particular item before from Croston Parish Council. I think the best I can offer tonight is I'll get these responses back to the gentleman who raised it and perhaps see whether, if you're happy, I'll put him in direct touch with the head of street scene and waste so that he can identify exactly where the problem is. And I do know one of the issues revolves around the cutting of highways verges that are is the word infected by knotweed, or is it that are infected by knotweed and sort of spreading it via the river, by the watercourses. So as I said, if you're happy for me to do so, I'll take this back to the gentleman who raised it and put him in direct touch with the head of street scene.
Fine with that, Alan. I mean, he's been at meetings here before, and it is a serious issue, you know, not making light of this. I mean, this week can be very damaging and even damage walls, buildings even. So, it is a serious issue. Thank you, Alan. Item 5, question from members of the liaison and the public. Anybody any questions tonight? Anything they'd like to raise?
I can't keep quiet, sorry. Yeah, something's cropped up in my county council division around equality of access, really. What I basically mean is that when planning applications, and come back to planning, when planning applications are coming through, to ensure that we're thinking about the pedestrian, or say a child or somebody who's visually impaired, that actually we've been diligent enough to ensure that developers are putting things into the applications that provide that accessibility and equality offer, because actually some recent planning applications have just not addressed that, and then it's always difficult after something's been built to be able to persuade a developer when the conditions are all being signed off to actually put that money in. And one issue's cropped up recently in the town centre around the interchange. I was approached by somebody who wanted to get a bit of smart tech together, which would enable somebody who was visually impaired to be able to cut across the traffic lights, coming off the train, then coming across to the bus station and going to Galloway's, you know, without having that, well, physically being scared or not being able to actually make that journey. If you go into your villages and to your parishes, you might have zebra crossings with bleacher beacons, but you haven't got the smart tech there. You haven't got, and unfortunately, there's not an appetite or a plan at county to actually go back and fit our legacy bits of equipment with this high-tech stuff. So we're not actually improving stuff. So I'm just going to spread the word about it, really, that it's, you know, assess what you've got, because more and more, these, particularly with what we've been talking about with the local plan, there's more and more traffic, despite some focus on active travel. We've got that traffic there that's actually preventing people from having that safe journey across your main roads in your areas. And you will have those corridors, those busy roads that aren't getting any better, where children want to get to school, or they just want to get to the shop or the post office. So it's just something to think about. And I'll come back and talk about it another time if I got anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Well, particularly be a county issue, wouldn't it? Highways are always consulted on planning applications, but I don't know whether they ever look at that.
But I just want to come back on that. We touched about schools and we haven't talked about it much tonight. Just be reassured that as your county councillors, not all here tonight, but that we've got a meeting with the chief exec at Chorley on Monday, and we're aspiring to have a task group to actually looking in about school places planning. So despite whatever's going on with local plans, and that your county councillors are working really hard on the issues that have been brought up in this arena.
Thank you, Julie. That's very reassuring. We're on to item 6 now. Items for... just 1 minute. Somebody got a hand up online, sorry. Bev, do you want to come in now?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's just information, really. We've just issued on our Adlington Town Council Facebook page some details from the 2021 census, and it gives you a really good insight to the makeup of your parish. And you can interrogate it and get all sorts of things. I mean, we've talked about transport planning. It tells you on there how far people travel to work. It gives you different distances, how many people work from home. There is, you do have to be careful of that because it was 2021 and there was more people working from home because of lockdown. But the distance some people travel is interesting. It tells you age groups, religions, how many people in the household. I can send the link out to you if you want. But the information that's coming out tomorrow from it also tells you how your parish has changed in the last 10 years. So it might be useful to look at is your parish or town council moving in the same direction as your population. That was it.
Thank you, Bev. I don't think we've anybody else. So we'll move on to item 6, items for future meetings. Just quickly, we've just had a change of cabinet member at LCC for highways and transport, but we're still trying to get in touch with them to attend a future meeting, because we've always found it very good when Keith Eden was cabinet member. He came a couple of times and it was always very useful. It's County Councillor Swarbrick, is that right now, Julie?
The thing is, there's the Deputy Crime Commissioner who's responsible for road safety and obviously the new cabinet member, really keen to come out to the districts, and they certainly have pledged already. I mean, I've had the Deputy Crime Commissioner to my area twice already, so I need to share it out. But parish councils can request it. They're really keen to be building bridges with parish councils. So just invite them down.
Yeah, it's the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner that usually comes to these events rather than Andrew, who is the Police and Crime Commissioner. But yeah, that's. I'll have a word with. Can we make a note of that, Nina? And we'll have a word with Carol to have a word with them. And,
well, he came to the Astley Village one, most accommodating, listened to everything we had to say, made sensible suggestions. I was very impressed. Yeah.
Yes, I have met him, and I would agree with you. Yeah, he's very impressive.
He's a bit intimidating.
Very
he's
engaging.
So big, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a big chap, he is. But he's quite engaging, and obviously he's an experienced policeman as well. He's worked in the police. Graham, did you want to bring something up here?
Just one thing, Chair. Who's the cabinet member for highways now? Is it still Charlie Edwards?
No, it's what we're just saying. I don't know his first name. Swarbrick.
Oh, right. Yeah, I missed that.
County Councillor Swarbrick. I don't know his first name. Julie might be able to tell you. So yes, Nina's made a note of that to ask the Police and Crime Commissioner or the Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner, whichever, to come to a future meeting, and we'll certainly put that on the agenda. I've no urgent business, so if everybody's happy, thank you very much for your attendance, and good night, safe journey home. Thank you.